All right, sounds great. Hey, welcome to Taste and See. This is episode
9, I think.
9. Yeah. All right, we're almost in double digits.
Right? Come
That's
on.
good. That's good. We haven't been canceled yet.
We're not teenagers yet.
We haven't been canceled.
No.
Anyway, yeah, this is a great morning. It's like 40 degrees outside. Joe Steele just made us amazing coffees.
Yep.
And so we're ready to go.
We're ready.
And we're going to pick up from last one, right?
Right, because we
had a
cut it
shorty.
short.
We
Yeah.
had a shorty.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about marriage.
Yes.
So what do you want to talk about?
What do I want to talk about with marriage? Oh, I think we talked about a lot of things in the last episode. But, you know, one of the things I was thinking about was communication, right?
Ah, that's huge.
And I think one of the big things when early on that I had to, well, not even just early on, but I think has been a theme is how important good communication is.
Right.
And I remember when I was working, I was working out of the house and you were home with the kids. And I think we've shared a little bit about that time in past episodes. But I would, come home from a long day of work. And it was, the job I had was pretty intense. And, I'd come
in the medical office.
I'd come in.
The medicals. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
very intense job.
And so I would come home and in my expectation, I would think, of course, he would think I've had a rough day. I've had a long day. Of course, he's going to make dinner because, why wouldn't he? He's been home all day, right?
You know what they say about people who assume.
And, but I just had this expectation like of why wouldn't you think that? And so I'd come home and, of course, I'm tired and hungry and there would be no dinner. And instead of, speaking up, I'd just get mad and be disappointed,
right?
And irritated and quiet.
You're a quiet mad.
And
person.
yeah, quiet mad. I'm one of those, when they talk about snapped, she was quiet, kept to herself. I'm one of those types. And then next thing you know,
you're like a pressure cooker.
Right. And so, just feeling like, and then hurt. He didn't think of me. And I remember
he doesn't
this kind of went
me.
on for several times. Like it was several times of this happening. And finally, I think I blew up because, the pressure got too much. And I, got mad and blew up. And you don't care. You don't care that whatever. And
you probably cried.
I probably cried.
Yes.
And I was mad and hurt. And I remember you saying, well, why didn't you just ask? Why didn't you just ask me? Like, why didn't you just, send me a text? Like, hey, I'd really love to have dinner when I get home. And it was just like, oh.
Right, and tell me what you'd like for dinner.
Yeah. And that was...
Because I'm feeding 3 little kids, so mac and cheese could happen.
Right, and it was like,
dogs,
oh my gosh.
chili dogs.
Like in my mind, I thought, well, you should just know. Yeah. You should just know.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of things like that in marriage where we just
People
think...
want to be mind readers.
Yeah, like, aren't you a mind reader yet?
Right.
Don't you know me enough that,
Aren't you Chris Angel?
Right, right. And so I think that was a big one. And then, I was able to change that. And I would send you a text and go, man, I'd really love blah, 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 whatever for dinner.
Right.
So, and you're an excellent cook, so I appreciate that.
Good. Yeah, I remember during that time, well, communication overall.
Yeah.
Right?
Huge.
It is massive in marriage. And it's communication about all things.
Everything. Right.
Right? Like I remember early on in our marriage.
Right.
I was terrible with finances.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me back up.
No,
we got okay.
Now.
No. Let me just say, we got horrible advice, right? So I think we talked last time about how it's important to have people in your life who are further along than you give you advice, and that is wonderful. However, in the church we were a part of, there was, I don't know what it was, but it was the sense of, well, the guy does the finances. Right. Now, I work in finances, for those of you that don't know. That's my job. I do finances all day, every day. And so, I was accounting major in school, so
right.
I can do finances. But we were given this advice, and of course, I was trying to be this good, new wife. And I was like, okay, you do the finances. And what happened? Why don't you share about your experience with finances?
So you got to understand, I'm very different with finances.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a family where when the red line came across the bill, then it got serious, right?
No.
My mom raising 5 kids,
right.
I never saw like any accounting, any spreadsheets, any
balancing of a checkbook. Yeah.
There was no ledger. My mom would just, handle things, right? And we all kicked in when we got jobs. We'd kick into the family finances to help support everything we're doing. Until my stepfather came along when I was like 14, and then it changed because he's an engineer and he did great.
Yes.
So anyway, so as a young man, I used to keep my money inside a pair of Nikes in a shoebox because I was that guy that had, a dozen pair of shoes and I would clean them. I was weird like that. I was a shoe freak before that became a thing. But I just kept my cash.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even have a bank account. I was a merchant marine and I would tell them, hey, I'll just take it in cash or a check. I'd pull my money and get cash and a check. Then I go to the bank and cash the check. I had zero banking.
Yeah.
So it's funny when we're getting married, we're engaged, and I go, I got to get us a place to live.
Right.
So I go down, I find this great place in Rock Ridge, in Oakland, right on the Berkeley border, and I found this great place.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going to get this place. And I showed up to sign the paperwork with cash.
Yeah.
I had several $1,000s in cash in my pocket.
Right.
And they were like, okay, do you want to put down your deposit? It was like, back then it was like $1,000. I said, sure, I got it. And I pulled out a wad of hundreds. And the lady's looking at me. She goes, we don't take cash. I need a check. And I'm like, I don't do checks. I do cash. Right. And I'm 25 at this time.
Right.
And I didn't trust banks. I'm like, why are you going to hold my money? It's my money. Right. And then you're going to charge me to get my money.
Exactly, right.
That makes 0 cents.
0 cents.
Right? Welcome to the Babylonian system. We're enslaved. But that's another podcast.
That'll be another topic.
But I'm like, well, you don't take cash. It says legal tender, right?
Right. It's right here.
It's right here on the money. So the lady's like, no, you're going to need a checking account. And we don't take cash. You'll have to mail your checks in for the rent.
Right.
I was like, this is ridiculous. I remember going down to a bank and then opening a bank account. And I was telling you about it, and you're like, oh, did you get the place? And I said, no, I got to wait till Friday because I need to have a checking account.
Yeah.
And you're like, you don't have a checking account?
Right. I think I didn't even know at that point. I was just like, are you kidding me right now? Everybody has a checking account.
No, I think you probably had one at 10 or something.
I had one very early. I think my first credit card, I think I was 16 and I got a Nordstrom card.
Of course you got a Nordstrom
Of course
card.
I got a Nordstrom card. But I paid it off before the 30 days, no interest. I grew up in a family, you do not pay interest.
Interest is for others.
Interest is for others. Exactly.
We're like that now.
That's right.
Like, I ain't paying no interest.
Exactly.
But so I didn't have much as far as the way of, being raised, understanding, and being a smart financial steward.
Yeah.
So we ran into a lot of challenges because I was in charge.
Oh my gosh.
Of the finances, which meant bills come in, they go on the desk.
Yep.
And then you'd go, hey, why are all these bills on the desk? I go, I'll get to them. And I would eventually.
Oh my
gosh. Which led to problems because I got into a major car accident.
Yep.
Because we were out of town. I hadn't paid, what was it, the phone bill?
The phone bill. And we were in the ministry. This was years ago. So we had a fax machine in our house.
A fax machine in our home. Yes.
And we had, our phone line. And so was this before cell phones? We just had a landline?
Yeah, we just had a landline.
And
cell
pagers,
phones
probably pagers. And
there were cell phones, but, we didn't have those. We had pagers.
I don't know if we had a cell phone at that point. So this is a long time ago. And back in the old days.
In the 90s.
We came home. We had been out of town for something and came home and our phone line was cut off because you hadn't paid the phone bill.
Yes, I forgot to pay the phone bill.
Oh, and of course, by the time we got home, it was like 4 something in the...
No, we had cell phones because I called...
Oh, from the cell phone, that's right.
Yes,
there we go.
We did have cell phones.
So we must have.
So I called around to try to find somewhere that would take my Pac Bell,
Yes, yeah.
bill, and I found a place, about 8 miles away from the house, a little kiosk that you can pay your phone bill there.
But I think they were closing in 20 minutes or something like that.
And
this was in San Jose, so you're talking Bay Area traffic.
So I'm jamming to San Jose and I wound up getting into a major car accident.
Major car accident, doesn't make it to pay the bill. Yeah, so it snowballed one thing after the next, after the next.
Yes,
and
it was bad.
But I remember another time we were on vacation in Florida. Do you remember? We went to go visit your grandma.
Yes.
And the way you would do the finances is if there was still money on the ATM receipt, then there was still money. You did not take into account if there was checks that had been, because at that time you paid checks. All our bills were paid by check.
That wasn't really my fault because someone
had held a check for months.
For several $1,000s.
Yeah.
For like 8 months.
I think it was like a rent check or something.
No, it was a deposit.
Oh, that's it.
On the place. And he told me when I gave it to him, because he was a brother in the church, another pastor, and we were renting a place in San Francisco that his dad owned.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, just write me the thing." And I said, "Well, okay, when are you going to cash this, right?"
Yeah.
That's how I did finances. When are you going to cash it? So I'll pay attention. And he said, "I'm not. I'm just going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
It's a deposit. I don't need it." Well, he ran into some financial challenges.
And then he deposited it.
And deposited it without talking to us.
While we were in Florida. And so we go to use our ATM card at a store to buy. I think we were buying flip-flops. Yeah.
Right.
Like something cheap.
Right.
And it was like declined. And I remember, I think all the blood drained from my face at that point. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of our trip.
Yes.
In Florida.
Very first day. And we're going to be there a week.
No money. No money in our bank account. And I think at that point, I don't even think we had a credit card.
No, remember we were given bad advice.
Again, bad advice. So
when we got married, we each had a credit card and used it, ran it up, pay them off. And the couple who was discipling us said, "Nope, you shouldn't. Don't have credit cards. Don't get into debt." So we were being good disciples.
Terrible advice. Such terrible advice.
Such terrible advice.
Anyways, so after that time in Florida, I think that was the time that we talked, we communicated, and we decided that I would start doing the finances.
You would do the finances.
And since then, we have not bounced a check, and we have not overdrawn our account.
It's true.
And we have credit cards. And
it's true. And we're doing fine.
And we still don't pay interest. Yeah.
We still don't pay interest.
So, yeah.
We get a lot of free airline tickets.
Yes. Have credit cards. Side note, kids that are watching, get credit cards that work in your favor. Right. Southwest cards. You can get flights, Discover, cash back.
Yeah, I love it. We'll go, hey, let's go visit our friends in San Diego.
Cards that give you rewards.
We pay like $14.
Yeah, your credit cards need to do something for you.
Yes.
So that is just a little side note, a little financial side note there. I'm not a financial guru, but so we teach our children. They need to have a bank account, how to balance that, how to. Yeah.
You teach our children.
I teach the kids.
I'm the guy who.
I also teach the kids how to drive. Right? I also teach kids how to drive. So what does that tell you? Patient. What does that tell you about the driving skills in the family?
That you don't have a heavy foot like I do.
That I'm a better driver.
And you're much impatient.
Much better.
I thought we were talking about marriage. Now you're going into driving?
Marriage, we cover all things.
Wait a minute. How many cars have you wrecked of ours?
Just one.
While you were 8 months pregnant?
Just only one.
With both of our children?
Only one.
I have never endangered our children like that. I always have single.
You only endangered yourself.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a godly thing.
Oh, thank the Lord for Volvo.
You almost destroyed our babies.
They live to tell about it.
That's a story we could talk about.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah. That was so interesting.
Point, but not today. Let's talk marriage.
Today. We're staying on communication.
Communication is not just about the finances.
Yeah.
It's got to be about the family, the kids, the home.
Let me go back to the finances because I think the thing with that is we each have strengths and weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And so, in that scenario, my strength is finances. Let me do the finances, right?
Right.
For you have other strengths. You can do all the cooking.
Yes.
Which is fabulous.
No, I can't do all the cooking.
You can do all the cooking.
You've become a good cook over 30
I've gotten
plus
there.
years.
I've gotten there.
You've gotten there.
Yes.
There's some dishes that I don't even mess with. Risotto. I won't even touch risotto because yours is so much better than mine.
It's just so time.
It takes a lot of time to make good risotto.
Intensive. Anyways.
Some of you out there going,
okay, now we're going way off.
It's like rice-a-roni on steroids.
No, don't even say rice-a-roni. That is, don't eat that.
Everybody ate rice-a-roni at some point in their life.
Everybody did not eat
rice-a-roni. You never ate rice-a-roni?
No, I grew up healthy. My parents didn't do stuff out of a box. It was all fresh,
Okay, the rest of us, America, that grew up in single-family homes eating rice-a-roni.
Eating that garbage.
Hamburger helper, tuna helper.
The only way I want my tuna is ahi and sushi style. Like it should not come out of a can.
But you could buy
tuna should not be in a can.
You could buy 25 cans of tuna for the price of that one ahi dish.
Tuna. But man, you got to eat well.
You do.
You got to eat
and
well.
we do.
We do eat well.
And we do.
All right, so communication. Go back.
Communication isn't more about all of the above, right? So I think I shared the story about our first night, but you've got to communicate even about intimacy.
Absolutely.
And expectations and, because what happens is in life, not everybody gets married and has stayed chaste, right? Stayed a virgin.
Right.
But they've had experiences and they can be, for lack of a better term, triggered by something that their spouse does that reminds them of a situation.
Right.
I'll never forget, we were in Oakland. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've told this story, but you're looking at me like you probably shouldn't.
Like, probably be very careful.
Okay, I'll word it very carefully. And a young couple, they're awesome.
Yeah.
He's very zealous, aggressive. He was an ex, gangbanger from the streets, but a good man of God. Right. Really a great guy. And he married one of the sweetest.
Right.
She was an amazing, but very different character. Right. Very sweet.
Right, which is most marriages, right? You got opposites attract.
Yeah.
And I think the Lord puts us together, to complement our strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yes,
so that together
you're one really good person.
Together we're amazing, right?
But
you're like half a good person. I'm half a good person. Put us together. We're one good person. Yeah.
Something like that. I'd say one amazing person.
One amazing person.
So we get I think you were actually on the phone with her one night, and she was calling you, talking, and her husband had texted her and said he's coming home and he's going to bring it.
And I'm bringing it. That's what he would say.
Yeah.
I'm bringing it. And she was so sweet, and she was just like, oh my gosh, like it just terrified her.
Right. Like she would literally, go to bed and pretend she was sleeping because he was so aggressive physically with her and, demanding. And I remember we had to do some counseling.
Yeah.
Like, bro, that is not intimacy and love and tenderness.
Well, and I think that leads us into, your love languages, right? Love languages is, that's not a turn on. That's actually a turn off.
Right.
Like that's the opposite, right? You have to know what each other likes. Mm-hmm. And so, if you haven't read that, if you're married and you haven't read that 5 Love Languages, I know it's, an old book, but
been out for a long
so
time.
Important to know what are the things.
I've heard people poo-poo it. Oh, love languages. If you can't figure it out,
well, if you can't figure it out, read the book.
Right. Well, yeah.
There you go. There's a reason there's a book.
I would have never thought acts of service makes someone feel loved.
Right. Because that's not your love language.
No, it's not.
Right. So if I try to love you in the way that I feel loved, you don't feel
I'm just loved. Like, hey, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Now, if you get me a gift, that is one of my love languages. I get a gift. Right. Oh, now I know you went out of your way.
Yeah, you thought about me. Right.
You thought about what I like, and then you picked this up for me. And it can be something simple.
Right.
Like coffee beans.
Yeah.
Right? Some amazing coffee beans. Man, I feel loved.
Right.
You bring me home some, which by the way.
Today, I'll make sure that
go
happens.
Go by Steelhouse Coffee today.
Bags.
Joe has nailed his Guatemalan roast.
I got you.
Some of that
I got you.
Life. You got me?
I got you.
I'm going to feel very loved.
All right.
And then I may do some acts of service later.
Awesome. Well, I got a list. I have a list.
No, I was doing acts of service all day yesterday.
You were doing. You were so good.
I'm sore. Just for the podcasters, I'm in a lot of pain right now.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it.
You can't see it because it's deep inside.
Deep.
And I took 3 weeks off from working out. And then I jump back in, and I do group workouts. So it's not like I'm just at a gym going, hey, I think I'll do some push downs. Hey, I think I'll do some flies. No, I work with a group, and there's so many exercises. It's like a CrossFit training group. And man, trying to keep up with these 20 and 30 somethings.
No, right?
I can't.
You try.
I must admit, I had to drop to my knees to finish our last set of 50 push-ups. Anyway, I was sore. I am so sore sitting here right now. My legs, my chest, my shoulders. I'm just sore.
I'm sorry, honey.
And then I had to climb on our roof last night and clean out gutters and seal some things.
All the fun stuff.
That's acts of service, though, for you.
That is for me and for our family.
Right.
I
Take care of our home because storms are coming, and
Yep.
I want to be prepared.
Yes, exactly. But I'm reminded, just a total side note, we have a good friend who's a fitness trainer. And I remember asking him once, we had dinner with him. Remember, we lived in the city. And I was like, Sergeant Ken, give me what is the best exercise for weight loss? Like if I could just have one exercise to do. Right. And he said, oh, I got the exercise for you. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I was
burpees?
Thinking.
Is it going to be?
Right, burpees. I hate burpees, but it's burpees. And he said, no. He goes, this exercise, number one exercise for weight loss. He goes, they're called push-aways. And I was like, push-aways? I haven't heard of push-aways. He goes, yeah, push away from the table. And I was like, you got me there. That does work.
That works.
Push away from the table. So push-aways.
Oh, yeah. He's
so funny.
Sergeant Ken's boot camp in San Francisco was legendary.
Brutal.
So brutal.
Man.
I remember that National Geographic or some fitness channel or something was coming to film. And he was like, hey, make sure you don't miss next week. We got film crew coming in.
Oh, great.
Man, I almost vomited every day of filming.
Right.
Like he was pushing us so hard, which was the norm. Mm-hmm. But normally in the class, hey, man, if I feel like it's too much, I'll just stop.
Right.
I'll just sit.
Yep.
No, because he wanted to get to filming. So he's like, make sure none of you take timeouts. We're going to complete the exercise.
Oh, my gosh, you were dying.
He crushed me.
Yep.
I was vomiting in the parking lot. I at least held it till the parking lot. So bad.
So bad.
Anyway,
all right, we got totally off track. Okay,
back to marriage. That was a major rabbit trail.
That was a major.
Which happens as we're talking about life. So we were talking about marriage.
Yep.
Communication, love languages.
Yes.
So for me, love language for me, and I never understood it till I read the book. Mm-hmm. But for me, physical touch is one of the ways I feel love.
Yep.
And I would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
But as I read that book and went through it, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense. And I'm not a touchy-feely person, but touch is important. Like when I see
I'm just going to love you right now.
You're just going to,
love you
you're
so
putting a
much,
deposit?
So much. I'm putting a deposit in your love bank.
That was like 38 cents.
Do it again.
You're getting up to a quarter, right? You're getting up to $1. Oh, but I didn't realize that till I started thinking about us.
Right.
And the kids. Yeah. And I love to have the kids and hold them and talk to them and tickle them and roll around and fight with them. And, and I was like, wow, it is physical touch.
True. Yeah.
Right? Which, it's not everybody's, but it is one of mine.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So give me one of yours.
Acts of service for sure. That's huge. So if I, come home from work and you've done something that I've needed to get done or whatever, that to me says, okay, he's thinking about me, cares about me. I think the other thing, he loves me. The other thing is words of affirmation. And I know I do that to other people. Like,
right.
But that's something, words of affirmation is.
You're awesome.
You're amazing.
You're beautiful.
Oh.
I love you so much.
Here, let me touch you.
No, not now.
No more touching.
No more touching.
Kid show.
Yeah,
kid show.
Touching leads to other things. But, so communication is huge, obviously. Yeah. Knowing each other's love language is big. I think realizing that, we touched on it earlier, that I'm not going to know what you're thinking unless I ask. Right?
Or unless I communicate.
Unless you communicate what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So we oftentimes, we don't do our devotionals.
Right.
That's something we should talk about. We did talk about devotionals. Yeah. Like, it's not here's my walk with God. It's this 1 hour window, 2 hour window. We're communicating with the Lord all day.
Right.
That's talking to the Holy Spirit all day, the Father. But being able to communicate with each other, hey, here's what God's saying to me.
Yes. Yeah.
That's huge in a marriage.
Yep.
Now, maybe you're watching this and you don't go to church, you don't have a relationship with the Lord. I highly suggest you get one because it makes life so much better.
Huge, yeah.
And, but communicating, hey, what's God saying to you?
Right.
And it's amazing how things will line up.
Yes. Yep.
But if we're not talking about it and communicating about it, not just communicating about the finances and intimacy and all.
Right, but every area.
Yes, every area, especially the area that's the most important.
Right.
Which is your spiritual life.
Right. Absolutely.
And because that's going to continue on for eternity, right? This temporal life, this physical life, this ends,
Right.
This ends pretty quickly, right? You think about the average life.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going for immortality.
You're going for immortality?
Yeah, it's available.
Of course I am.
It's available.
It's available. Let's get there, right? Immortality, and not talking even having to die in the flesh.
Let's just, for those of you that are watching and you're wondering
like
if it's
going,
available,
"What in the world?"
I'm just going to do this little.
Do it.
Just this
We'll take
little
a commercial break
for
about
immortality and why it's available. John 11,
Yes.
right? When Jesus goes to raise Lazarus from the dead, right? And he's talking to Martha, right? Martha comes out to him and he tells her, he goes, there are those, he makes the declaration, I am the resurrection and the life.
Right.
Not I will be, not I
Someday.
I am the resurrection and the life, right? But then he makes this statement. He tells her, he says, there are those, oh my gosh.
Morning when this life is, sorry. I was trying to provide, how you get the guy on the piano that plays?
You know those kids that are like ADD, right?
Wow. My initials are ADD.
You need more coffee. Have
ADB are my
more
initials.
coffee for you. Drew has been drinking coffee since he was a little guy because they wanted to put him on Ritalin. So more coffee for you over there. Okay. So Jesus makes
you're
this
just
statement.
outing me. I think that's what that's called. You're outing me.
Did I throw shade?
You're throwing shade.
Did I use that right?
No shade.
No shade. Don't
Stop
throw
throwing
shade. Something like that.
No scrubs. I don't know.
No scrubs.
Which is what you told our daughter the other day.
I didn't tell her that the other day. Well, what were you telling? You told our son something along those lines.
Oh.
What was it?
I said there's great advice from Belle Biv and DeVoe in the 90s.
That was it.
Listen to the song. I told him this when he was like 13.
That was it.
Poison.
Don't trust a big butt and a smile.
Right. I wasn't going to go there, but you did. So.
Oh, and so then we told our daughter, no
we
scrubs.
We just lost the
no
Christian
scrubs.
audience. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. If you grew up only listening to Keith Green and, worship music, I apologize.
Amazing.
He is amazing. I have some of his albums at home.
I know we do. Oh, anyways. Okay. Immortality. We took a commercial break and then we totally went off the rails. But Jesus says to her, there are those who will die and yet live. Okay. And we all, most of us believe that, right?
Sure.
I would hope that, when you die, you're going to live, right? You're going to, live eternal life. So that's one. He says, there are those who will die and yet live. Okay. That's one type of people. He says, and so second type of people,
right?
There are those who will not die and yet live.
That's me.
Yes. Is that high five or were you just testifying?
I was testifying, but you went in for the five. So I don't leave you hanging.
Right.
If you come in for a five.
Never leave.
If you come in for a five, you never leave someone hanging.
Never leave them hanging. So,
although we should knuckle. That's more appropriate now.
All right. So, did you do that?
Did I just do jazz
You totally did.
Finish the explosion?
Yep.
I didn't mean to. Muscle memory.
So, there's two types of people. You can die and yet live.
Right.
Or you can not die at all.
There you go.
And live.
I'm going for option B.
And then he says at the end of that statement, he turns to Martha and he says, do you believe this?
Right.
And I think he asks us, do you believe this? This is available.
Right.
Yes, I believe it.
I'm going to be like Enoch.
That's my little plug on immortality. Anyways, go back to whatever you were talking about. I don't remember.
No idea.
I totally lost track.
Because now I'm on this immortality mindset.
Right?
Walking like Enoch.
So amazing. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So good. No, marriage. We were talking about marriage.
Yeah.
And giving advice to your kids using 90s and 80s.
Using, referencing 90s songs.
Right.
Don't talk to mom and dad. Just go listen to this song.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully you can decipher the message. No
funny.
scrubs.
Communication. But yeah, communication. I think communication expectations. If you have certain expectations, we need to communicate. We need to communicate.
Right. And we do, which is amazing. I think by now people can tell we've got a pretty good, solid marriage.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time we ever raised our voices at each other. I mean,
I think only when I'm yelling at you from the other room. Honey,
right.
I need you. Come here.
There's a spider.
Yeah, that's probably the last time I raised my voice.
Yes, I guarantee it. There's a bug.
Come kill it. That's probably true.
I'm like, you're a billion times larger. Just kill it.
And I will if you're not home.
Which you did in episode 3.
But if
there
you're
was a little
home,
spider that
if
came
you're
down.
home, yeah, and I got it. It was little. But if you're available,
right,
you've got to do it.
I'm the Terminator.
Right.
Around the house.
Well, I want you to feel job security.
Okay.
I got to keep your, I want you to feel needed.
That's not one of my love languages.
I want you to feel needed. I need you.
I do feel needed.
To kill spiders.
All the time. But no, we don't fight. We don't argue. We don't manipulate through silence.
Yeah. I think early on we did those things and learned that
in the first decade there was some of that.
We're on the same team here.
Yeah.
It goes a lot better if you're
and understanding we're better together. We each have friend groups, right? And we will go meet with our friends, or you'll go do lady stuff. You guys will have breakfasts and go hang out and go see like Nutcracker, and I could care less. I had to see that enough growing up.
Right.
In public school, they always made us go to the Nutcracker. And I have my group of guy friends, and we'll go hang out, and I'll go do stuff with them, go grab meals, go to the Moose Lodge, go watch a game, go see the UFC fights.
Right.
But we're always coming back together.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Well, and I think that's one thing that when we went through that really difficult time when you were home raising kids and I was out, working out of the house, I think one of the things that we did that was huge is when I would come home from work, we would sit on the couch. Do you remember? You usually have a cup of coffee for me or something. And we'd sit down on the couch and we would talk for like 30 minutes. Right. We would just sit and
about our day.
Talk about our day. You'd tell me how things went at home. I'd tell you how things went at work. And it was just...
Why are all the kids in their rooms? Oh, they're in major timeout.
Right.
Here's why.
This is what they did. But I think that helped because we were apart from each other all day long.
Right.
And had all this going on.
Oh, and you worked... you would often work 10-hour days.
Right. And then we'd come back together and be able to talk. And man, that was hugely helpful so that we could, kind of decompress together.
Yeah. And I think that's some of the thing God was doing to me.
Yeah.
And inside of me is, hey, you need to connect with Eva.
Yeah.
If you guys aren't connected, guess what? We're not connected. Right? And there's a lot of biblical principles there about if you're not connected with your spouse.
How you treat your spouse, right?
Huge. All right, let me speak to some guys out there. Listen, the Bible's very clear that you're supposed to love your wife like Christ loved the church and laid down his life for the church. So whatever it is that you are as a man, you have got to include your wife, right? Because the Bible says even your prayers will be disrupted. You won't even get your prayers to the Father if you're not treating your wife with love, if you're not considering her. And it does say, hey, consider your wife as the weaker sex physically, right?
Physically.
Like I could pick up the end of this table. You'd probably strain something and fall to the floor. And no.
Oh my gosh, and fall to the floor.
You work out.
I do work out.
You work out.
I do.
But that's the key, guys. You got to consider. So I don't even have to remind myself. I did early in our marriage.
Right.
Like, hey, consider Eva in this. Now it's just automatic. What's Eva think?
Right.
What does Eva want to do? I just naturally think about it.
And I think we've been communicating so much for so many years that now we almost can read each other's minds.
Oh, we often
we're getting pretty close.
We often do.
And it's funny because there's times where you'll say something and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just had that exact same thought. So I think we've become more and more in tune with each other.
We've become more and more one, which is the goal.
Right.
Which is also the goal of our relationship with God.
Right.
Right? He wants us to become one. Jesus even said it.
Right.
I want you to become one with the Father just like I'm one with the Father.
Right.
Right.
And what's so amazing about that statement is he says, so the world may know that you sent me.
Know.
And I think our testimony to the world stems from our unity with the Lord and our unity with each other.
Yes.
So it's the world's not going to know unless we are in tune with him and with each other.
Yeah.
It's our oneness. And it shows you why the enemy goes so hard after marriage and even after unity in churches, families, relationships, really sowing disunity.
Right.
And division.
Yeah.
Because how's the world going to know?
How's the world going to know?
They're going to know through our oneness.
Which, does this happen to you? It happens to me all the time. Well, and it happens, we get people that will watch the podcast and they'll be like, oh my gosh, it's good to see a good marriage.
Right.
Or you guys seem so in tune, or you seem like you really love each other.
But that's taken work. It takes effort. It doesn't just happen. I mean, it's taken hours of communication, years of communication. And I think the other thing that we did early on and still now is we go on overnights together.
Yes.
We prioritize
our
relationship.
I was just going to
So even when the kids were little, we would go on dates. But you have to make the time.
Right.
We have to make the time.
We'd find people that we knew, who we trust, who's like family to us, and we'd tell them, hey, can you stay at our house this weekend?
Right.
We're going to take off Thursday through Sunday.
Yep.
And we'd load up the groceries, find out what they like.
Yep. Load up the house with good groceries, set them all up.
Leave a bunch of money, get pizza on Friday night.
Yeah, the kids loved it.
Yeah.
It was super fun for them.
It was a break for them from mom and dad.
Yeah.
But it was important for us to just get away.
Just the two of us.
No agenda. Let's enjoy life.
Yeah.
And Yep.
And
we still do that. We did that last week in South Lake Tahoe for 4 days.
Yeah. So it's, making that a priority, your relationship a priority.
You have to. If you don't do that, going to a movie doesn't cut it.
Right. Which, that's fun, but.
Yeah. Going to a movie is fun, but that
but
doesn't cut it because guess what? You're not engaging.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just looking at a screen together and eating popcorn, right? That's not communicating.
Yeah.
But being away, getting a cabin, we've done some remote ones where it's cabin, firewood, and charcuterie tray.
Right.
That's kind of our thing. We always try to find a wine and cheese shop,
good charcuterie.
meat, and just buy all this very expensive goat cheese and truffle cheese, and we make up and we just chill out.
Yep.
Many times,
out.
we're just hanging out. We're watching TV. We're sitting by the fire. We're talking.
Yep.
I like when you read to me.
No.
Mm-hmm.
When I read to you by the fire.
And hand me slices of pepperoni.
Peel you some grapes.
Peel me some grapes. You haven't done that yet.
I haven't, because you don't eat fruit. You're Mr. Carnivore.
Oh, that's true. I don't eat fruit.
To peel you
I do eat fruit, just sparingly.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be locally grown. I got to know the farmer, the family.
Wow.
Didn't spray the trees. I eat fruit from our own backyard.
It's true.
I'll eat the apricots.
Yeah, that's true.
Pomegranates and Anyway, anything else you want to touch on in marriage?
I don't think so.
Because this was part 2, so this is probably well over an hour with part 1 involved.
But if you guys have questions, throw them in the comments and we'll see if we can address them.
So here's the thing, guys. Those of you who watch, throw questions in the comments. Throw topics you want to hear us discuss in the comments. We get a lot of people texting us personally and saying, hey, I have questions. Hey, no, throw them in the comments because we want to build a community where we're all kind of discussing things and helping each other.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. A lot of times I get answers from other people asking questions.
Yes,
or other people making a
right.
comment, and that sparks something in me. I go, oh, yeah, okay.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, so let's do this again.
Okay, sounds good.
In like 2 minutes.
Perfect.
For episode
right.
number
So if there's no
10.
wardrobe change, just know it's because we videoed back-to-back episodes.
All right. Well, thank you. God bless you.